Coming up on the Inside Indiana Business Television podcast, can Indiana tourism rebound this summer? Holiday World details its reopening plans. A year after spinning off, Corteva Agriscience gives an update. Trendiana spotlights spirits in Indiana. Grand Park takes part in a big youth sports safety study. Point Biopharma talks about its big investment plans in Indiana. And a former Simon Property Group executive follows his passion into golf. Welcome to the Inside Indiana Business Television podcast. I'm Andy Ober. Last year, visitor spending accounted for $13 billion of Indiana's income. This year has been a very different story thanks to the COVID-19 pandemic. Southern Indiana Tourism Assistant Director Luann Matson and Indiana Dunes Tourism Executive Director Lorelei Weimer joined Inside Indiana Business host Gary Dick to share their plans for the summer season.
Let's start in Northwest Indiana. Lorelei, the Dunes, getting a lot of attention for that national park designation. This is the first kind of full year of that designation. It had a big impact last year after the announcement. I know a lot of anticipation heading into this year than the pandemic. What's the impact, Ben?
Well, we have 6 million visitors that come to our destination annually, but the Indiana Dunes brings in 3.6 million just themselves. And because of the name change, and it was just one word from Lakeshore to National Park, we increased by 21% last year. So it was a significant change in terms of going to that distinction of being a national park. Yeah,
in terms of the impact, that the pandemic obviously has ground travel in many ways to a halt. How substantial has it been there?
Well, the biggest measurement that we have is our hotel occupancy. And in April, which is the month that got hit really hard, we had a 26% occupancy. Mm-hmm. We hope to see that gradually improve. We had a great Memorial Day weekend. We've had other states that are still closed around us. So a lot of visitors are coming to the dunes. And I do think some of those are going to start translating into hotel guests, but it's not going to be anything like it was last year. But a lot of national parks are seeing increased visitation because outdoors is considered being as safe in terms of being able to do an activity that's considered one of the low risk.
Yeah, good. We'll be back to talk to you in a moment about some of those proactive things you're doing. Let's go to Southeast Indiana now. Luann Matson, Clark and Floyd counties, your focus area there, but really the region, the Louisville region as well. What's the impact been in Southeast Indiana?
Well, we have we have more than $300 million in economic impact in our visitor spending. So people staying in our hotels, visiting our restaurants, and going to our attractions. And just like Lorelei said, our hotel occupancy has been down, and we've been averaging about 30% hotel occupancies across the board. And that's because we're at this juncture, but because we've had hotels that have construction contracts and truck drivers, we're in this confluence where we have I-65, I-64, and I-71 that meet. Mm-hmm. So there are a lot of people, essential workers, that are staying in our hotels that are helping that occupancy. But 30% during the time when we're supposed to be having Thunder over Louisville and the Kentucky Derby and Abbey Road on the River on Memorial Day weekend is a far cry from where it has been. There's been a lot of economic development momentum in that part of the state. And also, as you look at tourism, and I look at events or look at venues like the Ohio River Greenway, the Big Four pedestrian and cycling bridge, Falls of the Ohio, that state park, you have a lot of attractions down there. As you look going forward, what's the plan for reopening and welcoming visitors or guests back to those venues? Well, we're doing that slowly. We're taking the governor's recommendations and stages to heart. We want to make sure that we're doing that safely so that our residents feel good about visitors coming into the community and that visitors feel good. Mm-hmm. So we're doing a safety first message, making sure everybody has those plans in place. To keep the social distancing and the hand hygiene and all those things front and center so that we can welcome people and so that they can enjoy themselves, relax and rejuvenate like vacation is supposed to have you do, and then have a great time.
Very good. Lorelei, I know you're out with a new publication. Do you want to really connect with visitors? Talk about plans there in Northwest Indiana, in particular at the Dunes, to welcome people back in. I know you expect it's not going to happen overnight, but you expect hopefully a big year.
Absolutely. So our parks have remained open, and they're now opening up restrooms and so forth. We did release a public service announcement with the National Park and the State Park and our agency to get that out on social media, into the media, just to make sure that, like Luann, when visitors come, we want to make sure that they're doing all the proper social distancing, if they can wear a mask, to do so, and just being mindful of the fact that some of our businesses will have different rules of, capacity. They may request that you wear a mask, and to really respect that, because we want to keep the visitors as well as the employees and our residents safe. But one of the things that we just launched, which we're excited about, is our new outdoor adventure guide. And we are really known for our outdoor adventure, which is fishing, which is actually world-class fishing, biking, paddling, hiking, and bird watching. And it's a year-round destination. So we would encourage people to go to indianadunes.com to get that guide. It's a very detailed guide. And so I think we have something for everyone. And again, outdoor recreation is low risk. And so we think that's a great way to enjoy our destination.
Huge impact on the Indiana economy and certainly tourism, a $13+ billion industry. Lorelei Weimer from Indiana Dunes in Northwest Indiana, Luann Matson from Southern Indiana Tourism in Southeast Indiana. Thank you both for joining us. Good luck the rest of the year.
Great. Well, thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
One of the most popular tourist attractions in the state is Holiday World and Splash and Safari in southern Indiana. The theme park has a reopening plan that includes reduced capacity, a virtual queuing system, and more. Around Indiana reporter Mary Rachel Redmond visited the park to learn more.
It's the oldest theme park in the United States.
Welcome to Santa Claus Land.
Opened in 1946 as Santa Claus Land.
After a surprise opening,
then renamed Holiday World in 1984, this once tiny southern Indiana treasure now attracts more than 1 million visitors a year, grossing nearly $200 million. As it enters its 74th year of operation, however, it won't quite be business as usual.
We're in a different world right now. We've been following this pandemic from day one. We are going to make sure that we try to help maintain social distancing from the time they park until the time that they come through the front gates. The guests need to recognize that just like everywhere else, things are going to be a little different right now.
Some of the more notable changes that will take place this summer include limiting attendance to 50% capacity.
To help manage the crowds and manage the number of people that are in here, we're only going to have the dry park open. So the water park right now will not be open, but we are targeting opening Splash and Safari on July the 4th.
Another big adjustment for park goers will be admission. Tickets now have to be purchased ahead of time online.
Tickets will not be sold at the gate, so they will have to be bought in advance.
They've also developed major sanitation protocol for employees.
We've enhanced all of our sanitation procedures. Every single department in the park has defined intervals for cleaning and sanitizing high-touch areas such as handrails, ride restraint systems, seating areas, hand sanitizer. We'll have over 90 of those throughout the park, located near restrooms, food and beverage facilities, attractions.
One of the biggest changes to Holiday World this summer is the inline reservation system that not only makes social distancing easier, but the real perk, you only have to wait 15 minutes for your favorite ride.
We're installing a new virtual queuing system to allow people to wait for rides virtually instead of being in a physical confined queuing area.
So you can go on your smartphone. We're going to provide you with a link that'll be on our website as soon as you open up our page, and you can basically reserve your place in line. You will get a notification then on your phone about 15 minutes beforehand to go to that attraction. If you don't have a smartphone, no problem. We're going to give everybody a wristband so we can utilize the wristband procedures as well.
It's definitely been a challenge. There's been a challenge every single day, but we're kind of approaching it from the standpoint that there's things we can do here to improve the business in the long haul. We think things like virtual queuing, it's an opportunity to get, for us to evolve as a business. I think people are going to see the theme park experience not just change, but it's going to improve for the better.
Mary Rachel Redmond, Inside Indiana Business.
It's been a year since Corteva Agriscience began operating independently after spinning off from Dow DuPont. Corteva has more than 21,000 employees worldwide, and Indianapolis is home to one of its global business centers. Executive Vice President Rajan Gajaria talks about how business has evolved and how the pandemic has impacted operations.
It's the oldest theme park in the United States.
Welcome to Santa Claus Land.
Opened in 1946 as Santa Claus Land.
After a surprise opening,
Then renamed Holiday World in 1984, this once tiny southern Indiana treasure now attracts more than 1 million visitors a year, grossing nearly $200 million. As it enters its 74th year of operation, however, it won't quite be business as usual.
We're in a different world right now, and we've been following this pandemic from day one. We are going to make sure that we try to help maintain social distancing from the time they park until the time that they come through the front gates. The guests need to recognize that just like everywhere else, things are going to be a little different right now.
Some of the more notable changes that will take place this summer include limiting attendance to 50% capacity.
To help manage the crowds and manage the number of people that are in here, we're only going to have the dry park open. So the water park right now will not be open, but we are targeting opening Splash and Safari on July the 4th.
Another big adjustment for park goers will be admission. Tickets now have to be purchased ahead of time online.
Tickets will not be sold at the gate, so they will have to be bought in advance.
They've also developed major sanitation protocol for employees.
We've enhanced all of our sanitation procedures. Every single department in the park has defined intervals for cleaning and sanitizing high-touch areas such as handrails, ride restraint systems, seating areas, hand sanitizer. We'll have over 90 of those throughout the park, located near restrooms, food and beverage facilities, attractions.
One of the biggest changes to Holiday World this summer is the inline reservation system that not only makes social distancing easier, but the real perk, you only have to wait 15 minutes for your favorite ride.
We're installing a new virtual queuing system to allow people to wait for rides virtually instead of being in a physical confined queuing area.
You can go on your smartphone. We're going to provide you with a link that'll be on our website as soon as you open up our page, and you can basically reserve your place in line. You will get a notification then on your phone about 15 minutes beforehand to go to that attraction. If you don't have a smartphone, no problem. We're going to give everybody a wristband so we can utilize the wristband procedures as well.
It's definitely been a challenge. There's been a challenge every single day, but we're kind of approaching it from the standpoint that there's things we can do here to improve the business in the long haul. We think things like virtual queuing, it's an opportunity to get, for us to evolve as a business. I think people are going to see the theme park experience not just change, but it's going to improve for the better.
Mary Rachel Redman, Inside Indiana Business.
Remember, you can catch Inside Indiana Business Television on stations throughout the state every weekend. Head to InsideIndianaBusiness.com to check listings. Indiana's alcohol industry is doing its best to weather the storm in the wake of the pandemic. In this month's Trendiana segment, Yelp Midwest Regional Director Brittany Smith takes us around the state to check out 5 spirit trends in Indiana.
Brittany, over to you. As always, you've got some great perspective on what folks are doing around the state.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I had such a blast this past week going and visiting West Fork Whiskey to celebrate their new canned bourbon cocktails, and then hopping over to 1205 Distillery to celebrate their expansion into Westfield. So let's take a look.
West Fork Whiskey, we saw all the amazing Kentucky distilleries throughout the years, and we said, why is no one in Indiana making a quality whiskey at an affordable price? May of 2019, we launched our Oldhamer line, which was a resurrection product. Oldhamer was a whiskey that was produced in Lawrence County, Indiana in the mid-1800s, and then we brought it back to life last year. It's a very unique mash bill, 99% corn, 1% malted barley, which is very, very Indiana. It's very sweet, it's approachable. And then we recently launched the bourbon canned cocktails, which have been very exciting. We have a signature highball, which is a really traditional whiskey drinker's cocktail. And then we have the snapback, which is a bourbon and ginger, really great summer cocktail. You can find our products anywhere throughout the state, whether it's Meijer, Kroger, Walmart, Big Red, Crown Liquors. And then in terms of our bottle shop here, we're doing carry-out orders currently. You can go online, westforkbottleshop.com, place your order, and then swing by and pick it up.
We're a local distillery. Everything we do is made with 100% Indiana grain. We make spirits that we ship all throughout the state, and we also have cocktails that we sell at our downtown location and our new Westfield location. We're all from the Hamilton County area, and that area is just blowing up so fast and growing. Westfield just seemed like the next smart decision to do, so we hopped on the train real quick and opened up our Westfield spot. Carry out sales through our downtown location or our Westfield location. We're starting cocktail kits that we'll be selling here, pre-mixed cocktails. Also, we're in every Meijer in Indiana, so if you're outside of the central Indiana area, you can pick up our spirits at Meijer as well. We've been making hand sanitizer. We've kind of pivoted that way like most distilleries have been. What we're trying to do is make hand sanitizer and ship it out to people that really need it. We've started doing 5-gallon buckets, and those have been going very quickly.
With the rise of more folks making cocktails at home right now and alcohol sales also on the rise, this is some good excuses to try out some of these Hoosier businesses.
Yeah, for sure. Some great content and great small business owners as well. You mentioned making cocktails at home. You've got some scoop on several products that may be good news for those home bartenders.
Yeah, if you're familiar with the St. Elmo Cola that you usually get downtown at the St. Elmo Steakhouse, you can actually find their bourbon cocktail mix throughout the state. So it is a vanilla-infused bourbon cocktail, or a bourbon that you can then mix with a little bit of Coke and have that specialty cocktail at home. It is delicious. I'm a personal fan. Another great example of that would be also Almond Bite. If you haven't tried that, it is a vegan cream liqueur that is great if you are vegan or not vegan, and it has half the calories that a lot of the other cream liqueurs on the market have. It's an Indiana product using all local ingredients with a corn whiskey, and it's fun to add into your coffee as well to kick the day off. And then one last one that we have is, Indiana City Brewing. We're looking at more non-alcohol options that businesses are coming up with, even with breweries. And they've got a dry hopped sparkling beer that you can now try. It's a sparkling water, located on the Near East Side downtown. That's another fun option for those who do not drink alcohol.
Brittany, as always, great tour around Indiana and some great products. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks so much, Gary.
Grand Park in Westfield is leveraging its high-profile position in the youth sports market to study the impact and perceptions of the COVID-19 crisis on young athletes. The massive venue is teaming with the IUPUI Sports Innovation Institute to study the pandemic's impact on safety at youth sports facilities. Grand Park Director William Knox and IUPUI Sports Innovation Institute Director David Pierce joined Kylie Valletta in the business of health.
William, I'd like to start with you. So this survey focused on 12 modifications that facilities are considering as youth sports start to ramp back up. Can you give us an idea of what people were asked and why their answers are so important?
Yeah, we were very fortunate to work with Dr. Pierce and the Sports Innovation Institute to conduct this research. And what we found as we looked at reopening plans for many facilities and events throughout the country is that there were a lot of questions being asked of parents as to what would make them feel safe when they return to sports. So we looked at the 12 that were kind of compiled in many of those reopening plans, and we asked our own questions of what would make you feel safe once you return to our facility or once you return to playing in events. And it was questions related to event staff wearing masks and or dugouts being available. And we went to the point even to ask a question of, would you respond to a questionnaire or subject yourself to temperature checks when you return to the campus?
Okay, and David, I understand you're still going through the results with a fine-tooth comb, but can you give us sort of a high-level picture, your first impression of what respondents are saying, which, interestingly, 91% of the respondents were parents. So tell us what you're seeing in these early results.
Yeah, so some of the biggies that are just fundamentally important and really classify as things that, the more of this that people see, the more safe they feel, would be visible and increased sanitization practices by the venues. And then that includes like lobbies, common areas, high touch areas, but then also on the event operator side of things and the league side, the sanitization practices of playing areas and equipment. So both of those things were kind of ranked 1 and 2 in terms of those being things that the more people see, the more comfortable they feel. And then not too far behind that was seeing others engage in social distancing practices. And then on a related note, also scoring very highly was treating event staff who are trying to enforce those social distancing policies with respect.
Okay, very good. And I thought it was interesting. They were strongly against no spectators being allowed. So, William, let's go back to you and talk just a bit about the business side of things. Two big issues here. One, this is costing facilities a lot of money to make these changes, but also consumer confidence, so to speak, where you have to keep your customer happy. So can you share your thoughts with us on those 2 points?
Yeah, absolutely. This obviously there'll be significant costs associated with these enhancements as we continue to evaluate exactly what we do. For some facilities, it may not be as much. We're a 400-acre campus with a multitude of fields, so therefore it just amplifies that from our standpoint. We've already put ourselves in a position where we've cut a lot of our projections, but to your point, this is going to be paramount for us because this is going to instill confidence in our consumer that we provided a safe environment for them to come back and play. So these will definitely rise to the top from our standpoint of improvements that we still need to make here on campus. And we'll look at those not only for this year, but for the years to come.
Okay, and David, we talked a little bit about this off camera about how these results are so important from huge venues like Grand Park all the way down to small town little leagues all throughout the small cities and areas in Indiana. So how do you get these results out there far and wide so that everyone can see them and make these decisions about what to do?
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to work with our PR team here at Indiana University and also in conjunction with William's team up there with the city of Westfield. And hopefully if, the indication of the number of respondents that we've got at over 10,000 is anything, hopefully we're getting this out into the hands of event and facility operators that, we're really here trying to provide this as a service so that those folks really understand how parents are going to respond and how they feel about these different adaptations before they arrive.
And David, we don't want to get too far into the weeds here, but you also just mentioned just minutes ago that you kind of teased out some more data with rec parents versus people involved in travel leagues, travel parents. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, the recreational parents, we could say, so ones that are not engaging in elite or travel competition, they see all 12 of the adaptations as much more important and much more fundamental to the experience, and they want to see those on a much larger scale in order to feel safe, whereas the travel parents had a different profile, so to speak, and they were much more willing to more quickly try to get things back to normal, so to speak. So it wasn't that they don't think that those adaptations should occur, they're just not quite as strong in their belief before they would feel safe engaging in that activity.
Okay, and William, just a few seconds left, sort of closing thoughts. Practices are underway there at Grand Park, so kind of a soft launch of some of these adaptations. What are you seeing on the fields there right now? How are people responding?
Yeah, we started back practices late last week, and next week we'll add a few more. And people are being very cautious. They understand that, we're going to roll this out slow as we get to the point where we can get back to tournaments. But it's good to have activity back on the campus. I think the kids are enjoying it. But everybody's been a little cautious, staying away from each other. A lot of our main areas on campus are still closed, so we'll evaluate those as we go through the process.
Okay, well, David and William, thank you for being on the show today. Full results are coming within a few days, so we'll certainly be following up and sharing those results as they become available. Thanks again for being on the show.
Canada-based Point Biopharma is establishing its first U.S. manufacturing facility in Indianapolis. The company's plans include a more than $25 million investment and over 100 new jobs. CEO Joe McCann joined us with more.
Point Biopharma, interesting company, really focused on radiopharmaceuticals. In layman's terms, if you could talk about radiopharmaceuticals and what the company is all about.
Sure, definitely. So Point Biopharma, pharmaceutical company focused on creating better cancer treatments. And we see radiopharmaceuticals or radioligands as being this way of improving cancer treatment for patients. And when you think of radiopharmaceuticals or these radioligands, it's like a heat-seeking missile that carries a radioactive payload. These molecules go out and seek cancer cells, bind to them, deliver this radioactive payload, and kill the tumors. They're a very effective and safe form of treatment that have been used for over 30 years now in the clinic. And really the bottleneck for these getting into the mainstream has been manufacturing. And we've solved that problem now by locating at our facility in Indianapolis.
Yeah, and I want to talk about the reasons you chose Indianapolis, but I'm fascinated by, as we were talking off camera, is it about a 12-hour manufacturing process? In other words, from manufacturing to the time you want to get them out to the door, a very quick process?
Yes, it's a very rapid process, and you manufacture these multiple times a week. So these drugs have shelf lives of 5 days, unlike standard pharmaceuticals that are good on the shelf for 5 years. So we need to make these every week, multiple times a week. We need very highly skilled staff to do this, that can do this repeatedly and to specifications. So they'll be manufactured over a 12-hour period, hit the road in the evening, head down to the FedEx hub, and then they'll be shipped all across the U.S. and really all across the world to treat patients with cancer.
Because of that, for lack of a better term, just-in-time model, if you will, the FedEx hub here, the massive second largest FedEx hub in the country, in the world, really, a big factor in your decision to choose Indianapolis for this manufacturing operation.
Yeah, a major decision. So that hazmat hub, which is expanding as well, will be the game changer for us. And when we formed the company, a big part of what's held this industry back is that manufacturing as well, that supply chain, to ensure that you have that logistics to get it out to the patients the next day without fail. FedEx has that reputation, and we're excited to be just down the road from them.
I want to ask you, too, about the company, the success. It's been rapid growth of the company. The company is very new. Talk about launching the company and what the reasons are, in your view, behind your early success.
Yeah, so the company was formed in January, and we brought the right team together that had a lot of focus on meeting our goals, our phase 3 or our last stage before FDA approval. So we put a laser focus on that. We hired in the U.S. Todd Hockemeyer, who's from Indianapolis, is leading our U.S. manufacturing operation. That was key in identifying the site, getting set up, identifying the local crews that will actually help us build out the facility. They're a very specialized skill set in Indianapolis that have the understanding in this type of manufacturing that are going to allow us to act quite quickly. And our motivation really behind why we did this is because these drugs are just so effective, as I mentioned before. And they've been so limited by the fact that nobody's really invested in this way in manufacturing. We felt is our duty, given the skill set that we have as a team, to act as quickly as possible to be able to bring these options to patients as quickly as we can.
And Joe, a final question I want to ask you about the Indiana Life Sciences vibe, if you will. BioCrossroads, the state's life sciences initiative, a lot of momentum in the life sciences sector. How important is that to your wanting to be here in Indianapolis?
Very important. A very, very close second to the FedEx hub. We need those types of skill sets. And as I said earlier, this is just-in-time manufacturing, and to be able to draw from that sector and recruit these staff into our facility will allow us to meet our goals and to achieve our objectives of getting products into the market in 2023.
All right, and should mention the company hiring more than 100 workers by the end of 2024. That process is just now beginning. Dr. Joe McCann is the CEO at Point Biopharma. Joe, thanks for joining us from your home not far from Toronto, and we look forward to seeing you once you arrive in Indianapolis.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
And finally this week, after 30 years serving as Chief Financial Officer for Simon Property Group, Steve Sterrett retired and purchased the Old Oakland Golf Course, where he'd been a member for 3 decades. He's made huge improvements to the course in just 4 years' time. Gary Dick hit the links with Sterrett to get insight on his labor of love.
Steve, 30-year career at Simon, retired in 2014 as Chief Financial Officer, great business career. A lot of people retire to golf, but not a lot of people retire and buy a golf course. Was this part of that retirement plan you had envisioned?
It was not part of the retirement plan at all, Gary. I always told people when I was thinking about retirement that work, when you boil it down to its kind of most simple ingredients, is forced social interaction and forced mental stimulation. And you can't go from doing 60 hours of a week, to zero. So I had other things that I was going to do. I'm on board of a couple of public companies, doing some philanthropy on some not-for-profit stuff. But the opportunity to buy the club presented itself about a year after I retired. As you know, I live on the golf course. I've been a member for 30 years. Lived in Lawrence Township since I was 6 months old. And I saw a lot of potential. The course has good bones. I thought about it in the way I would have thought about an acquisition in the mall business. There's no other private club within 7 miles of here. If you look at demographics, 3 Mile trade area, there's 45,000 people. About 9% of golfers or Americans self-identify as golfers. So there's 4,000 golfers living within 3 miles of here. This is a perfect opportunity to provide a spot, to service, in essence, the northeast side of Indianapolis or the south side of the lake. So it's turned into a bit of a labor of love, but it's been fun.
Business decision, you talk about the business model, if you will, but passion, I think, is a part of it too on a couple of levels. One, you're a passionate golfer. Talk about your love of the game of golf, because you golf all over the world.
I am. I was a 3-sport athlete back in the day in Lawrence Central when short, slow guys could still play high-level varsity sports. But it became pretty apparent in my early 20s that I was not going to play industrial league basketball forever or play slow-pitch softball. So I started looking for something to do competitively. And I always had good hand-eye coordination. I had actually taken a PE class when I was at IU back in the day on golf. And so I remember buying the Jack Nicklaus Golf My Way tape and started kind of futzing around with learning how to play golf and got hooked pretty quick. So really beginning maybe by the time I was about 30, I started playing tournament golf. I'm actually the president of the Indiana Golf Association this year, so I still play tournament golf. And it's taken me all over the world, played some great courses, met some wonderful people. So that part's been very fun.
And you're very passionate too about Lawrence Township. You grew up here. You mentioned your athletic career at Lawrence Central High School. You met your wife there. Talk about that passion and what Lawrence Township, what this area of Indianapolis means to you.
Well, it's funny. When I graduated from IU, I was an accountant, spent the first 10 years of my career in public accounting. I remember being 26 years old and writing some goals down on a piece of paper, and one of them, interestingly enough, was to be the CFO of a Fortune 500 company. Always thought that I would have to leave Indianapolis to do that, and happily with the growth that Simon had after the IPO, I was able to make a full career out of Simon, accomplish some goals, and never have to leave town, which was very cool. But I coached youth basketball in Lawrence. I was on the board of the school township foundation for a long time. Our kids went through Lawrence Township schools together. So it's home. And the fact that I can do this as now a small business owner, but in a small part give back to the community and really build something, create something to be proud of, and do it in my hometown, it's pretty special. Not a lot of people get to do that.
Well, I think it's important to note you've not only purchased the course, but you're investing in a large way into the course in some substantial improvements. Talk about the improvements, what you're trying to create. You've already created, but we'll create here at Old Oakland.
Yeah, I'm over budget, if that counts at all. Well, I mentioned earlier, when I bought the course, I did so because I thought it had really good bones. It was a good golf course, but it needed to be modernized. And so we spent the first 3 years redoing the golf course, all new bunkers, all new cart paths, all new sprinkler system, put in some new tees to make it either harder or easier depending upon, what level of golfer you were, put in a new short game practice area. And then the last element, which we're in the midst of doing right now, is we're about doubling the size of the clubhouse. New fitness area, all new life fitness equipment, Peloton bike, a 2-bay indoor hitting area with TrackMan simulators, expanding the restaurant area, creating a private dining room area. So when it's all said and done, we'll have created something that looks very different than it was when I bought it.
The game of golf, the business of golf, has gone through some challenging years in recent years, but you're obviously bullish on the golf course business.
It's interesting, and I think part of what we've gone through as a nation here the last couple of months has made people appreciate things that all of a sudden they couldn't do for a while, and whether that's go to a restaurant or go out and play golf. The number of golfers in the United States has stayed relatively steady, over the last 10 or 20 years. The number of courses has come down. And so, we're busy. And so it's not for lack of demand. And then I think the other thing is an entity like Topgolf has introduced tons of people to the game, and they find out, hey, it's really fun. And over time, as an industry, we'll convert some of those social golfers to people who want to belong to a club or play, real golf on a regular basis.
Former Simon CFO Steve Sterrett, and in full disclosure, I am a member at the club. My wife and I live there, and I can attest firsthand that Steve and his wife Betty are doing a really great job transforming Old Oakland into something very special.
That wraps up this week's Inside Indiana Business Television podcast. Remember, you can find all of this week's TV segments, as well as the top business news from throughout the state at InsideIndianaBusiness.com. While you're there, you can also subscribe to our platform of free e-newsletters. This is Andy Ober for Inside Indiana Business.